Welcome back to the Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Ponte, where we will hear stories of incredible people thriving against all odds. And my hope is that we can all see how life is always happening for us, even when we are the less than 1% chance. Hey, welcome back to Against All Odds, the Less Than 1% Chance podcast with your host, Maria Aponte. I am so excited, you guys, because it's just funny how life works, but I connected with this amazing human. I already feel her energy, and I know that you guys are going to get so much out of this. So who is Angie Gerber? Well, let me tell you, she believes that we become what we think about. She facilitates and coaches people who are sick and tired of being sick and tired. I know that feeling all too well, and they want results. So she discovered her calling as a coach and mentor in 2017. She hit rock bottom, which we'll talk about a lot more, and then really at the lowest point of her life and knew something had to change, and she didn't know how it was going to get better, but you always have faith that something is out there that can help get you better. She made a life transforming decision to hire her first coach. So he's also been one of my mentors. So I know exactly how powerful this person is. His name is Bob Proctor, and then the rest is history. Through Bob's coaching, she found the secret to getting lasting results. This led her to her passion and purpose, and finally living her I get to versus I have to every day, which is so powerful. She since completed hundreds of hours of coaching and training. She is certified as a professional coach, CPC, an energy leadership index master practitioner, which I'm really excited to hear about all of that. She a core transition dynamics specialist and a Bob Proctor consultant, which again, I've worked with that same company, and it is seriously life-changing. She believes that once you have the awareness of this life-changing information, you will start shifting thoughts and finally create the results you truly desire. Tell her what you want, and she will show you how to get it. And if she can do it, you can too. So welcome, Angie. I'm so excited to have you.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So let's get into a bit of the backstory, because obviously this podcast is called Against All Odds. And a lot of the times I feel like this will help the person that may be in the process of what circumstances we think life has done to us. And then we can shift to see how life is happening for us with the stories that they hear on here. So I want to get deep into where you were before you found all of this and all this new life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And it's so interesting that my story and my rock bottom in 2017 was with alcohol. And that whole journey of mine with alcohol, I come from a family of alcoholics in recovery. And so I started the teenage drinking, nothing big, college. It was all under control. And probably about 6 to 9 months before my rock bottom in February of 2017, it's almost like a switch flipped. And I no longer had control, or it was then the whole disease had control over me. And I was making decisions that I wouldn't have made. I'd become someone I wouldn't have recognized even half a year earlier. And it's interesting because when you're in that spot, you feel, I at least isolated myself so terribly that friends of 30 plus years did not even know what was going on.
Yeah.
The only person that really knew the extent of it, and he didn't even know it all, was my husband. And yeah, it's just this vicious circle that of reasons why you drink. I remember in August, the previous August before the February, I wrote a 4-page letter on a legal pad, and it was legal pad size. So it was just like the reasons why I drink. And it went on and on, and it was because it's sunny out, because it's cloudy. I'm in real estate. So because I closed a deal, because a deal fell apart, because we're getting along, because we're not, because my kids are angels, because they're little crap heads. It was all of the reasons, any reason. And it just was so interesting that in that time in my life, I just became more isolated and more isolated and more isolated, because it got to the point where you had to be home by a certain time because you really didn't want to be out and about. My husband said, I don't know how many times, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. I can't do this anymore, because it was just so out of control. And the turning point and the rock bottom for me was when he caught me drinking and driving with my kids, our kids.
Ugh.
He said that to me. And it was in that moment, just something clicked. And I knew, like, literally, I was probably 3 to 5 days away from losing everything. And I was so to the point of being out of control that it was either I was going to hurt myself, I was going to hurt someone else, or yeah, with just really making horrific decisions that could be life altering. And I got so lucky in those last months that something like that didn't happen, because it was to the point where I had to continue to feed this beast inside of me. So, like 4 in the morning, it was driving around showing houses. It was going to a movie with my kids that started serving alcohol. So I indulged, and just making really, really, really bad decisions that I wouldn't have made again, like a year, half a year earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really powerful because it's funny how, not funny, but it's interesting how that turning point, that switch that you're like, oh my God, when did this take over the person that I am, the everything? I personally didn't. I think that the reason that I never got into any excessive drinking or drugs was because my brother is a recovering addict.
Mhm.
And I grew up, he's 7 years older than me. I was probably 6, 7, 8, 9, around that age group when I started seeing him come home completely drugged out or drunk or making a scene. There was just so much of that. And I remember like getting scared, hearing him wake up and, or not wake up, he was like fighting in his sleep
Mm.
and fighting himself in his sleep. And I think that scarred me in such a good way because I stayed away from it because I know that is a lot of the times in your gene pool, if you will. If there's someone in the family that has it, it's so much more likely for someone else to
Mhm.
continue that addictive personality. And I was like, you know what? Not, nope. I'm just not going to. And it was, I tell him all the time, you were my first eye-opening awareness of an against all odds story because after 20 years I saw you completely stop. And he's now 15 years sober, I believe, something around there. And it's just crazy to see and to experience
Yeah.
like all levels of sobriety and the back and forth. Like at for a while he would get sober and then we knew when it wasn't that case anymore. And so until his rock bottom, yeah, it's just such a pivotal moment where you're like, okay,
Mhm.
something's got to give and it's I'm going to trust that I'm being guided in the right direction.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I have a similar story with my brother. So my rock bottom was when I was 40. I'm 47 now, so that was 7 years ago. But in high school, back in the 90s, my brother overdosed as well. And his drug of choice back then was like LSD and weed and whatnot. So he really, they said if he was going to live, he'd be a vegetable. They didn't know if he was going to make it. He made it. He's fantastic. He's been sober since, but watching him go through that process
Yeah.
too. So I never touched it. And I always thought I can control.
Yeah.
myself with alcohol. And in the beginning, for many, 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 many years, it was just the occasional, and it
Yeah.
was just going out, and then it was blacking out once a year, and then it was blacking out once a quarter, and then it was blacking out once a month, and then once a week. And I had someone that when I shared this story with them, because in the beginning I had so much shame for the first 3 to 4 years, like barely anyone knew about this. I wouldn't tell anyone about it. And then through just little intuitive hits of telling people, beautiful things started to happen. So then I got more comfortable. Back then I wouldn't tell anyone. But yeah, so with my brother, and I wouldn't touch it. And
Yeah.
again, you think you have control until you don't. And
And so you
it's like
don't.
I said, that switch flips, or it's almost like going into a raging stream, and all of a sudden you lose your footings and you're swept away. You can't, like, you're floundering and you have nothing to grab onto. It just feels so much like that. And
Yeah.
then you feel the out of controlness. And so you drink more. And then my husband gets mad at me. So I drink more. The bank is calling for the mortgage. So I drink more. And it's just this circle of endless demise of yourself. It's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
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 Allowing something else to have the power of everything that's happened
Mhm.
in your life.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so that is very, very powerful. So
Yeah.
then take us into what happened 2017
Mhm.
and where,
Yeah.
like, to where you are now.
Yep. So again, it was in that moment where I knew, like my husband had said a bunch of times, I can't do this anymore. And I knew that time he meant it. Like this is done. I'm done. And I was about to lose everything that I cared about. And so what I did, and again, I think it was a lot because of the shame and the guilt and just not wanting anyone to know what was going on, that I didn't check myself in anywhere. I just met, because my family's in recovery, so they have people. And I met this woman and I just started to go to AA. So there was 90 meetings in 90 days. She's like, just do that. And I remember walking into my first one, and I must have had this look on my face because this woman came over and sat down, and she's like, "This is your first time?" And I was just like, I didn't know how I was going to do it. And I had drank that the morning before. I went in there and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And I remember for the first 3 days of my sobriety, my husband's like, "Are you okay?" Because I was just pacing and just breathing in and out. And it was like second to second. It wasn't even day to day yet. I hadn't been to that point. It was second to second. And then I got minute to minute. And it's just, I knew I had to do it. And I went for the first 3 months until I hired Bob and I found all that information. And I truly will have to say that for me, it saved my life because I had self isolated myself so much and I felt so freaking crazy and out of it and just like, on this island alone, that when I walked into that room and they put me in the first step room with a bunch of early on recovery people in recovery, that and then the old timers would come in and talk to us. And I looked around and I actually was like, okay, so I'm not the craziest person in the room. And it was just almost like these are my people. And I said things and I felt comfortable in that room that I would probably never say out loud again outside of those walls. So it really, and it made me understand because there was two gentlemen. I remember older gentlemen, and one of them was sober 25 years and then he went back out, and another one was 28 years and he went back out. And it wasn't until that very moment that I understood what the disease was, that doesn't matter if it's a day, a week, 25 years, 28 years. One of them ended up exactly where he was within 2 weeks, and the other one was just about a month. But that's how much this disease inside of you lives and is just waiting to be fed. And once you feed it, it will explode. And so that's what I understood it to be finally. And so I went through all that. And once you take a habit out, you have to replace it. So I, at the beginning, was I didn't know what to do. I was just surviving. And then I watched The Secret for the first time at age 40. And I was like, oh, so I bought
What is this?
Bob Proctor's book. I bought Jack Canfield, Lisa Nichols, John Osriff, all of it. It was like a whole, like, I was like, I'd never heard anyone talk like that. And so then I was just like, something about Bob Proctor and Jack Canfield. And I was going back and forth, but I landed on Bob, and I went to go coach with him, and it was like $10,000. And I was like, well, I'm about
That's
to
a
lose
whole lot of,
everything. Yeah, right. I have
yeah.
no idea how that's going to happen because I got to take care of the bank first, got to get my house, everything. As you can imagine, I was the bill payer. So I was not doing that for the last half a year or so for the most part. So really financial ruin at that point. And he said, well, you haven't made the decision. Once you make the decision, a way will be shown. And I just like when you can feel the truth and when something is just like right. And my intuition was screaming. And so I made the decision, and within 24 hours, a way was shown. So I signed up. Got the coaching for a year. And that year, I was 40. And the stuff that Bob said and how he shared and just the gratitude and you said it's happening for you, not to you, and how much of a victim I was my whole life. And that energy I was putting out and not being a leader and just, it was just like a whole new universe was open to me, literally. And I was like, and stuff started happening. I was manifesting stuff after thing. And at the end of that year, I was like, my passion found me. This is what I'm meant to do. And so I love real estate. So I was in real estate and I was in coaching. I was tug of warring with this. What do I do? What do I do? And following my intuition, I found a business partner that was looking for a coach or mentor for new agents. So for 2 years, I coached and helped new and inexperienced agents set up and run a successful real estate business. And then I help agents that are 20 plus years in the business, and I run a women's business collective. So I help women entrepreneurs, and it's just such a gift. And I went back. And so then I went and you had talked about IPEC. So I got certified as IPEC because again, that imposter syndrome. Well, I have to be able to show that I know what I'm doing. So I went and everything happens for a reason. I absolutely believe that. And I met so many amazing people through the IPEC coaching and the energy levels and all of that. And it's still like when I really, really thought about it and sat with it, it still scratched the surface and went a little bit deeper, but Bob's information and really how he explains the conscious and the subconscious and the paradigms and our habitual behaviors and how they were put there, when they were put there. By the time we were like 5 or 8 years old, we're still making decisions from that place, from that environment and information. I just knew that having to, through the repetition, remove those that no longer served you and replace them with what will is nothing changes if nothing changes. And I had lived my whole life like that. Like before I found this information, we'd go for real estate. We'd go fly across the country and get really jacked up and jazzed up and just so like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I just can't wait. And you get back and within a week or two, you'd be like, oh, all the fun and excitement and I'm gonna
It's
get
like
after it.
deflated. It's all
Yeah,
deflated. It's
because
like,
nothing changed.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's like you can motivate anyone for a shorter period of time, but it takes the discipline and the decision and showing up repetitively over and over and over that's actually ever going to change anything. And that's
yeah,
so much what Bob taught me because he said until the day he left this earth, and he said, until the day I leave this earth, I will fight my paradigms and my habitual behaviors every day. We all will. So it's first becoming aware of it and then having the tools and the resources and going through like I did with thinking into results and being prepared for it so you
yeah.
can make a different choice and you do understand exactly what's happening and more importantly what to do to break through the fear and get through on faith. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually did thinking into results as well in 2018. I'll do it forever because you have it, but it was those kind of things that shifted so much in me. So I lost my 11-year career in the travel industry in 2017. And in 2018, I decided not to go back to the industry. And I was like, I'm going to do my own thing.
Mhm.
And 2018 is going to be the year of me. And that's when I found like Bob Proctor and all of that. And it definitely, I still to this day, I have meditations that
Mhm.
I listen to him. That's what I use every morning. If I have 10 minutes or so, I have an 11-minute meditation. And if I have enough time, I'll do a 20-minute meditation. But like, that's who I listen to because to this day, and I started with The Secret too. Like, all, everything you were like saying, I'm like, yeah, me too. It's so crazy because I had my brother had listened to the
Mm.
audios of that like years and years and years ago. And I remember him like on a kick of all of The Secret and all that stuff. And it wasn't until 2017 that I watched the movie for the first
Mhm.
time. I live in Orlando, Florida. So I went somewhere to Tampa, Florida, and it's like a 2 and something hour drive. And in that drive, so I could stay awake, I just put it on the dashboard so that I could at least like keep alert.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? I didn't even come home immediately. I went to Walmart and I bought this huge poster board. I still have it here. And I created my first vision board and I bought all the things and it was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And I listened to the movie again and I was like, okay, I need to create a list of I was not in a great relationship at the time and it was long distance and he at the moment lived in Tampa. So it was like
Mhm.
coming back from seeing him and I remember I was like I need to write on a piece of paper because they say that you have to write it down
Yeah.
and I need to write exactly what I want in a person and exactly what I want in a relationship.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
still have that paper, but I had put that also on my vision board. The person that I was with was not that person. He had
Mhm.
a lot of the qualities that I loved, and what the qualities that I didn't love about that relationship, I flipped it and put the opposite. So
Mhm.
let's say he cheated on me, right?
Mhm.
Well, I wanted someone that was faithful and loyal and honest and all of the things that cheating was not,
Yeah.
right? So the opposite. And this list was like, I just left it there. I knew it in my heart, but I just left it. I
Mhm.
found it years later. And my boyfriend now fulfills probably like 98% of that list.
Of course.
98, 99. And we're
Absolutely.
working on 1% because one of those was that I wanted someone that danced. He was not good at dancing. So we're going to dance classes now. So we're just going
Perfect.
up that list. But it's something that I learned through Bob. And it's so powerful that when you're so what you consistently think about
Mhm.
is what you manifest. And it's so incredible. So
Yeah.
incredible. You said you started working with new agents and coaching them.
Yeah.
Then how did that transition into what you're doing now?
Yep. So I am still doing that in a little. I moved brokerages because now I'm really focused on helping agents a week in the business or 20 plus years level up their business. With where I'm at now, there's wealth building opportunity because most people have never been to a realtor retirement party because there just isn't anything like that.
Yeah.
So I'm really passionate about just showing up and supporting agents because I know in your list as well, we win through just helping others win. So if you
Yeah.
can help others get to their goals, yours will be taken care of. And I've just always had a servant heart and I've always loved showing up and just pouring into people. So I was on a real estate team for 7 years and I had the split to the brokerage and the split to the team. And by the time it got to me, there just really wasn't a lot left. So I've found a place where I can actually invite agents to join me and not have to charge them because
Yeah.
of how the compensation works. And it's just a beautiful thing to be able to show up at that level and pour into agents and not have to charge a team split and get them to start building their wealth and really pouring into themselves and into their future selves. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been amazing. And I think it was in Christmas or no, New Year's Eve of 22. So going into 22, that's when I went back to Bob Proctor and I signed up to be a Proctor Gallagher consultant, and I
Yeah.
paid him a lot of money to
Yeah.
be able to hold that title and to get certified in this and just really be one of his consultants, because from 2017 to that point, I had been certified. I had done a lot of coaching, and it really just, I knew I had to be immersed in this information every day through the repetition, because it's truly what changes, because not
Yeah.
much will go in and change unless you do the work. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much. Oh my gosh, this is so good. So tell us like a little bit about
Mhm.
if you can do it,
Yeah.
anyone can.
Oh my
Because I
gosh.
think that's so powerful. And a lot of people have this like limiting belief and this comparison
Mm,
that is in a negative way, because if she did it, then there's no room for me. Or
yeah.
if there's
Mhm.
so much of that. So give me all the goods on that.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that, because that is where it all started. Like when I first met Bob, and he was like the affirmations, or I literally was in such a rock bottom low spot in my life that my first affirmation was looking in the mirror, because he said you look in your left eye and you say it 5 times, and you look in your right eye and you say it 5 times, because that's
Yes.
the gateway to your soul. And I looked and I just bawling
Ball.
and sobbing, like, I'm worthy. Like, I didn't believe it. I didn't even believe I was worthy.
Yeah,
That
oh
is
my
how
goodness.
horrible I felt, and
Yeah.
how I felt like a failure. I felt the shame, the guilt, the how is this ever going to happen? In those early days and minutes of recovery, I'm like, how do I do this? Like, how do I go
Yeah.
here, and how do I go there, and how do I go boating, and how do I go out, and how do I, everything in my life to that point revolved around alcohol. All of
Yeah.
my friends, everything we did, wherever we went, it was all around that. And then that switch flipped, and then it enamorated that. And it was just like I didn't even know how to do life.
Yeah.
And in that, yeah, it's the worthy. For me, it was
Yeah.
just like, so if
I
I can,
remember, yeah, I remember for the first time telling myself that I love you in the mirror. That was
yeah.
so hard and beautiful all at once. And I'm getting like emotional just thinking about it, because that was something that I feel like I struggled with so much, was when I first started my health journey about 9 years ago. It was a lot of it was like, well, I don't matter. I have kids to take care of. I have a career to take care of. I have everyone else to take care of. And it was like I was last place in all of that. And then I was told I had cancer. And
Mm,
one of the biggest things that I continue to this day to tell anybody that will listen is what Bob says: if you have dis-ease in your body, you create disease.
yes.
Oh, it was that to me is like, oh, so good. It's mind-blowing and so simple and so good,
Mhm.
because I dealt with, and it was a lot of the worthiness, and I was sexually assaulted when I was 16,
Mm,
and I carried that
mm,
by myself for years. And with that, I ended up with cancer at 18, cervical cancer at 18,
mhm,
at 19. So if I look back, all of that, the weight of that dis-ease
mhm,
created that disease in my body.
yeah,
And oh my gosh, the moment that I understood
mhm,
what the heck personal development was, and I understood that there was a different way of thinking of things, and I understood like all of these mentors that came into my life when I decided that's
mhm,
when I decided
yeah,
that my health needed to flip, that I needed to change, that I needed to put my oxygen mask on first. That was the moment that I was like, okay, this is all new, and I understand how much dis-ease I was going through, and I was just holding it all in and just allowing everything to pile on, and it took a number on my body. I was dealing with
mhm,
depression, with cancer, with being a single mom, and just not understanding how I was going to make it through the 2015. 2015 for me was like craziness. And then I decided that I needed to take care of my health. And when I decided, I found the tools, and it was what like continued to change from there. And I think that's again just so powerful.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And it was just like, and within like, so those 3 months that I went to AA, and then it was in that time that I watched The Secret and I hired Bob and I found gratitude. And it all starts with gratitude. Like I have right here on my wrist, I'm so happy and grateful
I'm grateful
now.
that
Yep, I'm so happy and
Love-
grateful now
now
that
that
because that's what
is that,
saved
and that's
me.
your right hand?
That's my left.
Left.
And
Okay.
the interesting part about it, so if I can go like this, the I am grateful, that's in Bob's handwriting. So after he
Oh,
passed
that's so
away, yeah, I had his assistant get one of his journals that says I'm grateful for, and I took the I am grateful in his handwriting. And I was just like, when it was after he had passed, and I was planning on getting a tattoo with my bonus son who is going to be 18. So I knew I hadn't got it yet for a reason, and it was for that reason. And it's just like, yeah, and that's in that darkest moment, in those
yeah.
darkest days, if I could look back. And the thing that shifted me, I don't even know if it's the quickest, but just with the most impact was Bob saying, if you can't be grateful for where you're at and there's good in everything, you are not going to allow for anything
Yeah.
like to come into your space that you want. So I had never said I was grateful for in the way of really like really thinking about it and meaning it. And so I just found gratitude for everything.
Yeah.
And it was through like just like, okay, so I've done this and I still have that, and I still have this and this. And it was just like, and then you're raising your vibration to a different frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I say, if I can do it, anyone can do this. And I can show anyone how to do this because truly it's just knowing the tools and the resources, the higher faculties. I had never heard of such things. Live from our five senses. What's a
Yeah.
higher faculty? And it took me a long time of studying to even just being able to have those at my fingertips. And now it's just like I live by them. And I always had been intuitive to some point, but really actually to understand that and to dive in and to study yourself. And just the more you study yourself and the more you get to know yourself, the more I think it has absolutely made me a better coach and a better mentor because you can start seeing in others more what they don't yet see in themselves. And it's
Yeah.
just, it's such a beautiful gift. And that's where I just knew that this was, and like you said, anyone that will listen, I have the next 40 to 50 years now.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't have it the first 40, and everything happens for a reason. I knew I need to go through everything. That's just one of my rock bottoms. As you can imagine,
Yeah.
there's definitely more. And yet that was the one that really just rocked everything and shifted and gave me the this is happening for me, not to me
Yeah.
moment. And I know I wouldn't be in the seat, and I know I wouldn't have met Bob. I know my whole life in the trajectory would not have changed had I not went through that darkest time.
Yeah. I feel like I used to say that all the time. Everything happens for a reason. And
Mhm.
I switched it.
Mm,
I switched it to everything has purpose.
yes.
Happens for a
Mhm.
purpose.
Yes.
Because I don't believe like bad things happen
Mhm.
to a kid. I don't
Mhm.
think that there's a reason for it, but you could always find purpose and meaning behind it.
Mhm. Yes.
So I feel like I can help women that have been sexually assaulted because
Mhm.
I have been. And I, against all odds, have come past it, feel peace in it, can speak about it. Not everyone can speak about it. I know I couldn't. I couldn't for many, many years, and it created disease in my body.
Mhm.
And so I feel like we can always find purpose and meaning behind the things that we go through, even if there's not a reason for it.
I love that. Yeah. And I have a similar thing like that. And I love that purpose because I often hear people say, we can do hard things. We can do hard things. And I'm like, what if we said we make hard things look easy? So
Yeah.
I love that.
It's
That
just
is,
the
it's,
flip
yeah.
of
Yeah.
words that just create a
Hmm.
different impact and
Yes.
make it more like
Hmm.
I know I loved Tony Robbins for many, many years, and I know that he I don't even know if it was him, but I know that he says a lot, life is happening for you and not to you. But until I worked with Brad, that said, which is my mindset coach, that said it
Mhm.
every single time. And it was like repetitive and repetitive and repetitive. And I was like, yeah, I'm adopting that. You got it from your mentor. I got it from
Mhm.
I'm adopting that because that really makes an impactful for me. And so I love that we can just flip it just a little bit
Mhm.
and it makes it
Absolutely.
so impactful.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, and I was just going to say, and I appreciate that because even with Bob, it took me a while. Like you said, you had to hear it over and over and over again to accept it because he would just be like, there's good in everything and it's happening for you, not to you. And again, I was in such a victim mentality and victim mode. I had been in a difficult co-parenting situation and just played the victim role and to the point of disease, just all the bad energy. And it took me a while to really grasp that and accept and understand and work through that there's good in everything
Yeah.
and that this is happening for me, not to me, and remove that victim mentality. Because he said there's only two people you can be. You can be a victim or a leader, and you get to choose. And being a victim for so many decades, it didn't happen instantly. So
Oh, no.
absolutely. And I didn't understand like there's not good in this, there's not good in that. And
Yeah.
he's just like, there's good in everything. You just
Okay.
gotta look for it. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah, believe me, I think that sometimes people are apprehensive to tell me things because they already know that I'm gonna be like, well, but aren't you stronger because of it? You've already survived your worst day. Like you've already gotten through it and you're still here. That should be proof that this is nothing in comparison to all the things that you've already gone through. That should be your proof that you can get through anything.
I love
And
it.
so it's so hard to sometimes hear when you're in that victim mode. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
And
something.
yeah, and even victim was a bad word growing
Yeah.
up. I didn't even understand that. Or the other thing was ignorant. Bob used ignorant a lot. I'm like again, because of the environment I grew up in, what that word meant to me, it's not
Yeah.
at all what it meant for him. So that's again, he's like, your perception and your
Yeah.
perspective, it can change. And I was like, it
Yeah.
can? Whoa, like I can make different choices and decisions and think differently. And it was just like
Yeah.
this again, this whole new world opened
It's
up
so
and it just
amazing.
changed everything.
It's
Yeah.
so amazing. That's so
Mhm.
awesome. Okay, so what kind of
Mhm.
rituals do you do to like level up to where you are now?
Yes. So I great gratitude.
Yeah.
All the time I start my day with gratitude and it just gets you in the right vibration, the right energy. And then I have been always working a lot with triggers. So we'll get triggered all day throughout the
Yeah.
day. And I call it the power of two. So 2 seconds, 2 minutes, 2 hours, days, weeks, months, years, decades. We get to choose how long we're triggered for. So it's even in those moments that I choose like what I'm grateful for. Or I go to the opposite because he always talks about the pendulum and the polar opposite. Everything has a polar opposite. So it's really what's helped me the most throughout my day is again always starting with gratitude and then just the more aware you can be
Yeah.
and the more you don't let it happen to you, it's happening for you, and just reframing it, looking at it from a different perspective, studying, constantly studying. Again, it's Tony, it's Bob Proctor, it's just different people that I'm connecting with. I do a lot of just following my intuition, and I'm always going to be a student because I believe
Yeah.
everyone is our student and our teacher.
Yeah.
So I'm learning from people constantly, and really just the more I get to know myself, the more I can help others.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Ah, I love it.
Yeah.
So, anything else that you want to like give
Yeah.
to us?
I just want to say, because I remember when I was in the depths of my addiction, I would be scrolling Facebook, and there's this one girl that I went to school with that she was in recovery and she had been for a few years. And I would stop and I'd look at it, but I was just, I don't have a problem. I wouldn't even admit I had a problem
Yeah.
until I absolutely had to. And it's just, it doesn't, it sometimes has to get to that point. For me, it had to get to that point for me to listen. If anyone's listening that's been weighing on them, or that they maybe should seek help, or this isn't the way they want it to be, or they know that it can be different or it can be better. Just know that you're not alone. You might feel alone, because I certainly did.
Yeah.
There's help, and there's places that you can go and people that you can call. And if you need to call me, I just don't want anyone to feel as isolated and alone as I did to myself,
Yeah.
because it's a very, very, very lonely place. You start telling yourselves even more stories than you ever thought possible. And then they get heavier and harder and deeper and darker. And if I can talk anyone into seeking out help or someone, that would be my ask today. Yeah.
That's amazing. So I am going to put Angie's information in the show notes, and just any way to get in contact with her, website or social media or whatever. Angie, thank you so much. This was amazing. It's so crazy that I truly feel like vibration. There's definitely this big, huge purpose behind this recording today. And I'm just so incredibly grateful that we connected. And sometimes we get away from the studies that made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a while since I haven't reviewed Thinking into Results, and just a lot of things that you said that I'm like, yeah, that was so good, man. I need to go back through that. So thank you for that. It made me aware of what tools I have that I probably haven't used in a while. So I appreciate you. And listeners, I hope you got some awesome stuff out of this, because it was so good. Thank you so much for listening today. Peace out, guys. Love your life. Bye.
Thank you.